Tonight I wanted to talk to you a little bit about harnessing the power of why. One of the things that I found over the last, 30 or 40 years, there have been times where I've set goals, big goals for myself, like swimming in this channel, doing the Hawaii Ironman, doing some big athletic events, and I was able to achieve those things. But much smaller goals that I had for myself, for some reason I wasn't able to achieve them. I wasn't sure why. Why could I do some things that were really big where some of the smaller things that I had slated for myself I couldn't do? So I really became fascinated with this a few years ago, and I started studying why I was able to do these things. Why wasn't I able to do these things? Because I had some profound successes, but also some profound failures as well. So I wanted to share with you tonight some of my thoughts, some of the things that I've learned about how the brain works in terms of not only goal setting, but also, more importantly, in terms of goal achievement. We are all really good at setting goals. We know what we want to do. However, achieving goals is oftentimes a very different story. All you have to do is think about what you've even set for yourself, perhaps, for a New Year's resolution. We set the New Year's resolution, but they say that the vast majority of us, within 2 or 3 days from the new year, oftentimes we fail miserably and we give up on those resolutions. So again, I've come to an understanding of why some of those things occur, and I want to share those with you. The first thing I think that's important to recognize is that whenever we have a goal, typically, the first thing that we begin to do is we begin to ask people, we begin to think about it, we begin to read books, we begin to listen to podcasts about how do we achieve a certain goal. We want to find out the steps, and it's really important to have the steps in terms of how to be able to achieve anything, whether it's to run a marathon, earn more money, write a book. We need to know the how. The how happens in a part of our brain that sets up cognitive function where we understand. It's the area of our brain where we understand logic and reasoning, and it's really important to be able to have logic and reasoning to be able to understand how to do something. The problem with that, or the only challenge with that, is that if we set up our goal thinking about the how, the steps, but we don't set it up thinking about the why. Why is this vitally important? Why do I need to do this? Why is this supposed to happen? If we don't really understand our why, the likelihood of being able to achieve a goal in our life is dramatically diminished, simply because we don't have all the power that we need to invest, all the power that we need, all the resources that we need to be able to achieve this. So let me explain. The why happens in a part of our brain that is responsible for some really important functions. It's called the limbic structure, or the limbic system. And in terms of the things that it's dramatically responsible for is the epinephrine flow. It's also a part of our brain that is in charge of emotions, behaviors, and motivation. So if all we ever do is to focus on the how part, the part that's responsible for logic and reasoning, at the expense of not investing the limbic system, the part of the brain that's responsible for emotion, motivation, well, we may have all the how-tos, but if we don't understand the emotions, the why we need to do it, then the likelihood of us being able to be successful. And that's what I found out about myself. Those things that were really important to me, I had an emotional connection. And once I had that emotional connection, it's what I call try to stop me. When you have an emotional connection to your goal, if somebody tries to stop you, there's no possible way that they can, because you're so invested from an emotional standpoint. Let me give you a few examples of this. And I'm going to open up the call in, probably 10 or 15 minutes, because I want to hear what you have to say. But right now, I just want to share some of my thoughts, and hoping that you understand the power, how powerful this why is. You guys all know, in terms of, let's look at the color wheel. There are 3 primary colors in the color wheel. I'm bringing this up for a specific reason. There's red, green, and blue. And you can look at a box of Crayola crayons, but there may be 2 million colors in a box of Crayola crayons today. But as you guys know, that those 2 million colors, whatever they happen to be, they were a combination of simply 3 colors, red, green, and blue, the primary colors. We need those 3 colors to create everything else. Well, the reason why I say that is the first time I ever heard the next thing I'm about to say to you, I was really surprised. In terms of human emotion, all of our emotions come from, at one point in time they thought there were 6 or 7 emotions, but recent research has suggested that really we only have 4 emotions. And it's a combination of those emotions that make up all of our other emotions. But the 4 primary emotions are, remember this because it's really important when we begin to tie our goal setting into how we approach our goals, we need to tie it, if we want to increase the likelihood of success, we need to tie it to one of these four: happy, sad, afraid, or angry. Those are the four emotions that we have: happy, sad, angry, happy, sad, afraid, or angry. And I tell people, remember it this way: glad, sad, mad, and scared. Again, glad, sad, mad, and scared. If you can tie your goal setting to one of those four emotions, glad, sad, mad, or scared, glad, sad, mad, or scared, if you can tie it to one of those, you increase the likelihood of success dramatically. Let me give you a couple examples. In fact, in one story, years ago when I first started selling AEDs, for those of you that don't know what an AED is, it stands for Automated External Defibrillator. We use those if a person goes into cardiac arrest. If they don't have an AED close by, then the likelihood of them surviving cardiac arrest is about 5%, simply because we have 10 minutes to respond in a cardiac arrest for a person's life to be saved. Well, I've been selling these things for the past decade. When I first started selling AEDs, I understood the importance of selling AEDs. They're really an important tool. However, I didn't really have an emotional connection to the product. So the key driver in terms of me being successful in selling AEDs, the motivator was I had the hows. I had taken sales training. I understood the product. I understood the unique selling features. I knew the product features and benefits. I knew it in comparison to my competitors. But I didn't really have an emotional connection to the product until one day I went to the superintendent of my school and I said to her, listen, we need to have AEDs in the schools. At that point in time, AEDs were not mandated in Connecticut schools. And I said to her, I'm not here as an AED salesperson. I'm here as the father of 3 children, and heaven forbid that one of my kids go into cardiac arrest knowing what I know and there wasn't an AED. So I said to the superintendent, listen, we have to have these things here. Let me know how I can help and make that come true. And she said, Doug, we'd love to have AEDs here. The problem is we just don't have money in the budget. They're about $1,500 a piece. Well, I left there in that appointment thinking, you know what? I know better. I know better than she does. Anybody else, I know better, because I'd seen the consequences of an AED not being close by. So what I did is I made the decision that I would donate 5 of them to the 3 schools in town, 1 to the Little League and 1 to, I can't remember who else. Anyway, to make a long story just a little bit longer, 6 months after I deployed the AEDs in the school, one of those AEDs was used to save an 84-year-old woman that happened to be attending a Board of Finance meeting in the school gym 6 months after I had deployed the AED. I couldn't believe it. Sometimes we wonder if we're making a difference in our lives, and I'll tell you that next day when I woke up and I got a call from the superintendent of the schools telling me she wanted me to see her, I went in there and she told me exactly what had happened. As it turned out, the woman's still alive today. I realized that I had made a difference. And I realized that in that moment, no longer was it just a product that I was selling. No longer was it a product that I was selling because I had to honor a quota that was put upon me. But now, this device became a life-saving device, and I understood the emotional connection. It had changed my life. I was so happy that I had made a difference. Now, instead of just knowing how to sell the AED, now I had a reason on why it was really important. That day, I never worried about having to meet my sales quota for my company ever again, because now it wasn't about the sales quota. It was how many people could I get AEDs in the hands of where I might be able to save another life. So again, when we connect, whatever our goal is, when we connect it to something that's emotional, what happens now is the motive, the internal motive, because of the area of the brain that it happens in, changes the game, changes everything. Now, instead of the question of how am I going to make it happen, now the question really is, who's going to stop me? So again, when we engage the part of the brain, the limbic structure, the limbic system, now it becomes something that becomes so emotionally connected that the motivation is intrinsic. We don't rely on the extrinsic motivation of someone else. I tell people that when we understand our why, the how will follow. We'll figure it out. We'll figure out the how part, but now we become so engrossed, we become so engaged by the emotional connection. Let me give you another story. I saw this happen very clearly with my eldest child. She decided that instead of going directly into college, between her high school and first year in college, she came to us and she said, "Mom, Dad, I've decided that I can't go to college my first year." And we said, "What?" And we had been doing the college search thing for a year, just like a lot of parents do. And she said, "No, I've decided that I want to go to Africa and I want to do missions work." We said, "How are you going to do that?" And she said, "Well, I found a group that does this type of program." We said, "Cool. Sounds really great. Yeah, you've got our blessings. We did some research on it, found that it was going to be a great..." And I said, well, how are you going to make this happen? It costs $12,000 and Mommy and Daddy can't help you with it. And she said, "I don't know. I'm going to happen. I've prayed on it. I know it's something I'm supposed to do, and I'll figure it out." That kid's connection was so powerful emotionally in terms of something that she needed to do, that she found a way to raise $12,000 in a 6-month period by doing fundraisers, by begging her uncles, by doing a lot of cool things. But again, the how wasn't relative. The steps in terms of how she was going to make it happen wasn't important because she was so emotionally connected. No one was going to stop her. She was going to do exactly what she needed to do. She was going to, because the part of her brain that was engaged, it was like, somebody try to stop me. So again, when we try, or when we only connect the part of our brain to the how am I going to lose weight? How am I going to do this? We may have all the cognitive reasoning, we might have the logic, we might have all the things that we need to do in terms of how to be able to do it. But unless we engage the part of the brain on why we need to do it, the likelihood of success goes down dramatically. So I tell people, before you start worrying about the how, start to really think about why. Why is this important? What part of those 4 emotions, again, the 4 emotions is, does the goal that you have set for yourself, does it make you so happy, like my daughter going to Africa, does it make you so happy that nobody's going to stop you? Because man, when you feel so elated, but when something makes you feel alive, when something changes that part of your brain, when you become so engaged, nobody's going to stop you. Or when something makes you extremely sad, again, glad, sad, mad, or scared. My friend was scared that she was going to show up in her wedding pictures being fat. I want to give you one last example, and then if anybody wants to jump on, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Think about Rosa Parks. You all know who Rosa Parks is. Think about a brave woman. Rosa Parks was sitting on that bus, knowing, she knew when she got on that bus and refused to get to the back of that bus, she knew what was going to happen that day. But her emotion, she had to be mad as all get out from the years of pent up of being stuck on the, mad about what white people had done to her race, mad. But at the same time, can you imagine how scared that woman must have been sitting there on the bus knowing what was going to happen to her? She was mad and scared. There was probably part of her also that was really happy that she was brave enough to stand up to this. So what allowed her to be able to move forward in terms of she was so powerfully connected to her goal. She didn't have to worry about how she was going to make it happen. She didn't have to worry about how she was going to disrupt the way we had thought, the way we had treated her. She didn't have to think about it. She knew when she was so connected to her emotional side of her brain, was so connected to what it was she was about to do, she made big things happen. She changed history. So again, I want you to think, before you start thinking about how you're going to achieve that, how you're going to earn more money, how you're going to lose 50 pounds, how you're going to be able to make that trip happen in Europe, how you're going to, whatever it is, don't worry about the how. Think about how you're going to connect that goal that you have. Sit down right now. Think about, what is it about that goal that you're thinking about? What is it that would make you so happy, so connected, or so sad, or so mad, or so scared? So again, think about when we have a goal. Before you think about how you're going to do it, think about why you're going to. Tie it to something that makes you feel really happy. Tie it to something that makes you feel sad or mad or scared. And when we tie it to one of those 4 emotions, the likelihood of being successful because of the part of the brain that's engaged goes up dramatically.